That's it for one full hour of Naruto. Next up, everything in Poderation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything in Poderation. Thank you for Toonami Tom to rolling us in here this week. I'm Robert, and I'm a lifelong weeaboo trash man.
I am Daily, and I think I had a delay of a couple years, but now lifelong weeaboo trash person, yes.
And I am Colin Sparling, and I am a terrible, terrible Steve Bloom impersonator.
Yeah, actually, we have Toonami Tom right here in the studio. The socially distant studio, because
Yes.
everything's on fire.
Yeah, I can't even do it offhand. It takes me a few tries.
Colin is Steve Bloom.
I am Steve Bloom. See, it's nothing. You just can't. It's something. No.
Colin is Steve Bloom is Toonami Tom.
We have discount Steve Bloom in the studio here tonight.
Mhm. Really putting your voice acting chops right on the spot, right? No, this week for this episode, we're going to talk about where the anime discourse and the internet kind of intersect. All of us are stupid fucking millennials who grew up with the internet coming in like halfway through our childhoods, and then on top of that, anime was starting to become more and more popular, right? So we've kind of lived on both sides of the spectrum. Where when we were younger, anime was just all kind of like hearsay. It was rumors. It was the whispers in the wind that people talk about.
Did you know that there's this anime?
Yeah,
I saw a screenshot from it once in a Shonen Jump magazine that I got to look at the dentist's office, and that was my one exposure, and I never got to see it until 6 years later, and that's how I watched Soul Eater.
Congratulations.
Oh my god. I mean, you guys never had those kids that in like middle or high school that whispered to you like, "Hey, psst, do you watch Dragon Ball Z?"
Yeah, no, that's how most people did it. I think they just whispered to, like, they just kind of whispered out loud, just kind of hoping to catch someone else who knows what Dragon Ball Z is.
Well, yeah, but you gotta say it quiet enough so the bullies don't hear you.
Right. Or else they'd punch you, like how
Yeah.
Frieza punches Goku.
You like Japanese stuff, you fucking nerd.
But then, of course, as we grew up, right, the internet kind of made anime become slowly more popular. And
And
now
acceptable.
and now we live in a hellscape. I mean, that's just kind of the world. That's just the world in general.
Peak anime saturation
We've
is correlated with terrible times, question mark?
Did anime cause 2020 more at 11?
Yeah.
It's one of those
That's my
fucking
theory.
horseshoe things. It's like you go so far to one side, you actually revert back to the other.
We're the bullies now.
Yeah.
That actually
Yeah,
is kind
now
of
we're
the
the bullies
discussion,
now.
though. We're the bullies now.
Yeah, it's kind of led to that. I mean, and it's just the commentary on how the nerds in general are now the bullies of the world. But we'll get to that later. First, let's start with something fluffy and nice and fun. I want to go around the table. What is the first anime you all remember like getting into? Like, not just the first one you've seen, but the first one you were like, I can't wait to read that next chapter or watch that next episode. Like, you followed it.
Oh man. Okay, I guess I'll go first. Dragon Ball Z, obviously, big one actually, and another one that doesn't get talked about very often though that I grew up with was Samurai Warriors, which is another Toonami anime. Very awful dub, very bad. But
Most were.
yeah. But like this wasn't even on par with like Dragon Ball Z's dub. I don't think you had like Chris Sabat or Sean Schemmel working on it. Or maybe they did. I don't know. But like it just wasn't. I've seen it recently. It's not good. Had a lot of action figures from that one and also from Dragon Ball Z. So that was my first experience. And I would get super fucking hyped to watch Dragon Ball every single week after school. And I would run home. And I remember specifically seeing the trailer for a dude named Trunks showing up in Dragon Ball Z, and I was so fucking excited because I was like, "This he's killing Frieza. He's got a sword."
And his name is Trunks Briefs.
Yeah, Trunks Briefs.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Toriyama.
He could have been Bra.
That's his sister.
That's his sister, though. They were saving that name.
Bra Briefs.
Bra
Oh,
briefs.
that's awful.
Bra briefs.
So, Daly, what about
Briefs
you?
or bras.
What was the first one?
I definitely started with Dragon Ball Z just because I can remember literally the third grade. They had like a candy jar that also had like some Burger King style like Happy Meal toys. That you could get if you were good for that week, and I would start getting like these figures, and I'd be like, who's this little bald dude? And then I realized, wait, that's from the show that's on. I'm gonna start watching that. And then that led to, during dodgeball, all of us going Kamehameha with like the dodgeballs. It was a good time. But as far as like cognizant consumption, that's what I'm gonna go with, of anime. I started collecting Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! VHS tapes, and I had a pretty significant collection at one point before the medium went bust.
So you were all about pocket monsters and dual monsters.
Yeah, anything the monsters. That was the beginning of my journey as an artiste as well.
Yeah, not to be confused with, I think, was it Duel Monster? There's another anime called like Duel Masters, I think.
There is.
Yeah, which was basically knockoff Yu-Gi-Oh, but it played like a knockoff Magic the Gathering. I don't know. It was really weird.
Well, I mean, then there's also the other weird thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! How like there's the 4Kids version of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's really kid friendly, and then there's a real fucked up real version of Yu-Gi-Oh!
God, there's some weeds to get lost in here, people. I was also a Yu-Gi-Oh! Kid, though. On a side note, I had the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, and I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I was like, guys, I said to my friends, guys, you got to believe in the heart of the cards, because that's how you win a duel.
The heart of the cards.
Yeah, you got to believe in the heart of the cards. And we would play very loosely, probably not by the rules at all. And there was a lot of cheating happening because no one liked to lose.
But that's how they played it in the show, too. There was a lot of cheating.
There was a lot of this, like, and I win because of this. And it's like,
yeah.
Is that how? Okay, I guess he's in the Shadow Realm now, which I now know means fucking dead.
Yeah, you're like dead now. It's not just like you're gone, you're dead.
I just thought the Shadow Realm was like timeout. Like, you don't get to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore.
Kaiba, prepare yourself for my next turn.
Didn't Kaiba summon, like in the first episode where it was Yugi versus Kaiba? I remember that one a lot for some reason, but like didn't Kaiba summon like 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons in one turn or something like that?
He was
maybe...
burgling. He burgled.
Yeah,
he burgled the final Blue Eyes for his...
Right, because Konami in that universe only printed 4 Blue Eyes White Dragons in the world.
Yeah, so that he could get his final summon, and he burgled it from Yugi's grandpa. He burgled it from a grandpa.
That grandpa has the edgiest fucking design.
I mean, he's Yugi's grandpa.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
Inherit your hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then Yugi's like, Exodia's a thing. I win. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
God, that was so fucking dumb.
Anyway,
so there are a lot of shows that I think a lot of people have seen as kids, like Dragon Ball, obviously being probably one of the big ones. Sailor Moon was peddled a lot. Inuyasha.
Oh yeah.
Cardcaptor Sakura. I've seen that a lot. Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon is still popular to this day in various forms.
Also, right into the show, if you guys remember Big O. Anybody remember Big O? Just me?
Like Big Teacher Onizuka?
No, Big O. That was the name of the anime.
That had bugs, right?
Big O is basically
Big
Batman,
bugs.
but steampunk, and replaced Batman with a mech, basically. The guy was...
never mind.
His alter ego was... he drove a mech instead of being Batman.
I don't know if that's an alter ego. I just think he's just a dude who drives a mech.
All I know is he looks like a fucking Bruce Wayne anime ripoff.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not like someone gets in a Gundam and they're like, my alter ego is Unicorn. Like, no, they just pilot the Unicorn. And that's the extent of my Gundam knowledge. So there's that. I thought I'd just get that in.
So I think we should just... I'm going to apologize to the Gundam fans out there ahead of time. I don't think I've seen beyond maybe 2 episodes of Gundam Wing. That's my entire Gundam experience. There's so many Gundam series, guys.
Gundam, is there a lot of Gundam series?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, so that's kind of...
I'm just gonna let that sit there.
We're gonna let that go.
Yep.
So that was, at least for me, and I think for like YouTube Illustrated as well, like that's kind of like how anime started as kids. Like we all kind of, at least to me, I noticed these on TV, right? Like something that you kind of catch until something really sparks your interest, right? For me, it was Dragon Ball being one of them. And then I remember with manga, the first one I really got hooked onto was Shaman King, which is
Oh
like,
my god.
yeah,
I
that's
remember
like
Shaman
dead
King.
and gone now. Like that's just like, what the
Wow.
fuck even is that?
You're old.
I know. Shaman King was like kids JoJo's with like stands and shit.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first manga I remember like following. I think also something I remember just from this young too is like the Miyazaki movies. Like I remember Spirited
Oh,
Away.
yeah.
Spirited Away is probably like the big one that most people know. Like that was the one that broke into mainstream America.
Academy
real hard for a hot
Award
sec.
winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of those things where like by talking about this right now, we're really fucking dating ourselves. So whoever's listening to this is either going to feel really old or really young compared to us, or we're going to feel old. So it's just kind of like an endless thing because there's going to be anime heads out there like, well, I remember Robotech and Bubblegum Crisis and have Captain Harlock, and I remember when you couldn't get anime other than just really expensive imported VHSs that were manually worked in and translated with subs and blah.
Yeah, I remember Astro Boy.
Oh
Yeah.
shit. Sup, Grandpa?
yeah.
OG-san.
And I mean, yeah,
Oji-san.
to be fair, we're totally not like chronicling the history of anime, right? It's more just like
No.
the history of anime from a bunch of
A
kids
personal
born in the
history of
90s.
anime.
Yeah.
My memoir.
That's my memoir. That's a personal history of my anime.
List.com.
hmm So then the internet like really came like to the anime scene, at least for me, and probably this correlates with, hey, I learned how to use the internet, right, in like late aughts, well, even younger than that. But that's when I think the floodgates really open for setting the stage of where we are now in the anime community, where a lot of people are like walking encyclopedias for anime. Like just your average anime fan knows a fuck ton of anime for
'Cause-
some reason.
Because it's out there instead of having to buy like DVD sets for like $200. Gosh, I don't even know how much money I used to drop on like Naruto box sets before I realized I can watch each episode in 3 parts on YouTube in fucking 720p. If that.
Legally, of course.
Of course. Back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just there. It's there for the taking as soon as it's out of Japan too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you're one of those weirdos that still collects anime, those Blu-rays are fucking expensive still. It's an
Physical
expensive
media.
hobby.
Expensive.
Yeah. Weirdos who collect the F. Man, those guys. I'm glad I'm not one of. I'm so glad I'm not one of
I know
them.
I always say that like weirdos, but like I have like all of fucking Cowboy Bebop in my living room.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, this is the moment where you just like find anime, and I feel like this was the pilgrimage for like trying to claw through the internet to find, quote, the best anime, right? Like it was all about what was the best. For me, it was a lot of like digging into the past, like digging into the 90s, where a lot of the shows geared more toward adults that were like really popular at the time, right? Like Cowboy Bebop, like Colin just mentioned, Neon Genesis, Fuck Your Brain Gellion. Those were all like, you probably wouldn't run into them as a kid in the 90s, but then there was just this huge surge of people, I think, who like were teens in the late 10s or the late thousands into the early 10s, who went back and was like, I need to know what this Evangelion thing is. I need to know what Cowboy Bebop is,
Yeah. It wasn't until I actually learned how to use the internet that I thought I was the best Naruto fan out there, but I clearly wasn't, because very early Gullible Daily was very confused by like fan art and like fan videos
AMVs.
and no, just fan art videos, because then I thought like, oh, it must be canon then that Sasuke and Naruto get together
and Kith.
and kiss a lot.
Mm-hmm.
and that's
That
how
must
Daily
be-
discovered Yaoi.
Literally. Because I was like, if people are making, fan art of it, it must be true. Right? I just haven't gotten to that episode yet. Even though it's like episode 3 that they kiss. Just saying.
Gross.
That
Man,
happens. It is canon in a way.
Men kissing. Wow. How could they?
Not in my anime.
Yeah, not in my conservative anime.
Oh no, is that a conservative anime? Is that an oxymoron?
Maybe.
r/conservative weebs.
But a lot of this is making me think. Like it's kind of that Principal Skinner gif from Simpsons where it's like, is it the children who are wrong? Or no, am I out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
Yes,
right?
that one.
Okay,
No,
so
it's
so
them.
so now I'm like 25 and I'm like, oh fuck, I am doing that now. Like just unironically, that's kind of who I am, because I remember early in those days, a lot of people raved and ranted like, oh, dude, Cowboy Bebop from the 90s is like the best anime ever. You got to watch that. And I assumed those are people who would like come of age by the time Cowboy Bebop was around, and it made a very big impression on them. Like to them, like that's just top tier, one of the best animes ever. Like nothing will top it today, right? And then now I look back and think of the anime that I've seen as in my formative years as a teen, right? Like fucking Gurren Lagann and Full Metal Alchemist. And I'm like, there's no anime that's gonna top that. And now I'm 25 and I'm like, fuck, am I the enemy? Am I the
Yeah,
fucking
it's you.
boomer? Am I the baddie?
Yeah, it's. I feel like it's kind of similar to the same argument that like there was research showing that apparently the music that you listen to, I believe this is probably inaccurate, but it's somewhere between like the ages of 14 and I believe 23 or 24 is like that's going to define a lot of your music tastes, and a lot of other stuff is really hard to compare. So like maybe it's the same for anime is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I'm always going to like 3 Days Grace, even though I wonder why I like 3 Days Grace, but it's because I listened to it at that time.
Are they the Let's Start a Riot? Is that them?
Yeah.
Let's start a riot.
Yeah.
God.
And this was all on the backdrop of Naruto AMVs as well, and maybe that's why I do feel like defensive of like Naruto in some ways. Like just I know
It's okay.
it has its
It's okay,
problems, but give it a chance. But today, like the anime that I've watched more recently, I'm totally just like, yeah, it's trash. Like, yeah, it's probably
trash.
problematic in a lot of ways, but I enjoyed it, and that's it. I'm not going to defend it.
Well, I do think, like, just in general, I've noticed this in the anime community. There comes a point when you hit, like, if you've consumed anime for over a decade, you understand and accept that anime is trash, and I am trash, and I like trash, and that's okay.
It's the Miyazaki quote. Anime was a mistake.
It was a mistake. Yeah.
Anime
It's so
was a
weird
mistake.
that's like internalized. Like, you don't have like, I don't know, 30-year-old metalhead fans who grew up listening to Metallica and Iron Maiden and shit coming of age and being like, yeah, no, metal shit. I'm a piece of shit. I like shit and I'm okay with it. Like no one says that.
No.
Do
Unfortunately.
we just all hate ourselves, or do we hate the medium? I do love the medium for a lot of reasons, but I also recognize that there's a lot of problems within anime, and the fact that I still consume it, I'm part of the problem, guys. I'm definitely part of the problem.
I mean, same.
Yeah. So like, how much of that too, though, is like a lot of the popular anime are popular because a lot of them were innovators, right? Like Dragon Ball Z innovated with the shonen genre and
With
because of-
punching.
with punching really hard and getting more powerful,
Powering
and facing
up.
more powerful enemies.
Punch.
Yeah.
Did you know
Way back here.
transformations? Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah,
Final
transformation-
form.
Exactly. I mean, because if you look at what was popular in terms of anime back in like the 80s, I mean, you have like stuff like Akira and Ninja Scroll, like stuff that's like kind of hyper violent, a lot of really crazy, well done hand drawn animation. But then like Dragon Ball comes out and becomes a thing, and that kind of is a signifier of like steering away from that. And I mean, because shonen being directed at more like teenagers, adolescents, young adults, etc. I mean, it's just a little bit cleaner, but it's also still pretty violent. But that as an anime was pretty big. I mean, then you get One Piece and Naruto, and Bleach, all those ones. Like,
The
what
big
are those
three.
are doing?
The big
Yeah,
three.
and so like think of any of the big animes and what they've done for anime, and then think about now, like, is there a lot of like crazy original ideas or as many coming out of anime now? Like, I wonder. That's a genuine question that I have.
I would argue that in the past 10 years, I think we have seen some of the most unique premises for anime. but a lot of it is nestled in tropes that we're all very, very used to and comfortable with.
Right.
Mm.
I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Because I think it's like new ideas, but given to us in a familiar package.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the opposite, I think, definitely has happened in some series that never really, or I can't speak for the whole community, but like Black Clover felt very much like, okay, I need to fulfill these requirements to be a shonen anime, and I'm loud protagonist who has something vaguely wrong with them, wants to be the king of something, Wizard King, I think, and is trying his best and is just gombadoing through everyone else who has talent. I think it stands out more when it's like anime that tries to replicate or piggyback off of the success of other anime that came before it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think a one that I think about a lot in terms of like the through line between anime from the 90s, like going from Dragon Ball to the big three, Bleach, One Piece, Naruto, to right now. I think right now the big shonen anime is My Hero, right? My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
And
I don't think there's any question.
Yeah, and like that's broken into mainstream. Like that's popular now. Like that's what the kids nowadays know. Like that's today's Naruto.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's today's Naruto, right? And when you think about it, on paper, it isn't that different from Naruto, right? You have a big cast. They all have different powers for some reason or another, and they all have to work together for some reason or another. And there's an enemy group, right? Which, in Naruto for a while was like the Akatsuki or like the Sand Village, right? In My Hero, it's UA Academy versus the League of Villains, right? With the dude with the hand on his face. And that's it. In a way, it sounds like, oh, so why would anyone care about My Hero then? Like it's already been done a million times before. But
right.
The way anime has matured now, where the storytelling of it is far better. Like when you watch My Hero, the fights aren't as good, right, as like some of the Naruto fights or even some of the Dragon Ball fights in terms of like animation and choreography. But the way they set up the drama and the way you get invested in, like, I understand what this fight is for. Like, it's not just, oh, I'm going to save the planet if I beat the guy, but it's more like, tournament arcs and shit. Like, there's real drama and tension to these fights.
Right. And so, but it's crazy, though, because there is within My Hero Academia a lot of interesting writing and a lot of interesting concepts happening. But we still are, like, if you know anime, you are familiar with a lot of the different tropes and things that are happening. Not to mention, as a concept, capitalizing on the whole like superhero concept too, because that's huge in popular culture with the MCU and DC films, etc.
Yeah, it came out at the perfect time for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was just the perfect storm of something that it is going to be explosively popular. But do we eventually? Is there a time or a way or an anime out there, I guess, that is adding on to that palette of tropes that are becoming familiar with, or something new, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
This might come from recency bias, but I have been watching the show called Decadence, and that feels new because it's layering so many things on top of each other. It's sort of an isekai, except for the other world is the real world, and the world before the isekai is like a weird alien world that's taken control of Earth. So it is still tropey and like it's an isekai show, but there's a parallel plot line between both worlds that are both equally real. It's not like if you die in the game, you die in real life kind of shit. It's like when you die in the game, that is someone actually dying. Like that is a human being who dies. It's real weird. And I don't know. I think that's like the one thing I can think of that's like pushing the envelope a bit.
Yeah. I mean, granted, it's not like I've been looking super hard. So
yeah, this might be a little dated, not dated, but like not super recent, but like Erased really kind of jumped out and I think brought some people over to the dark side of watching anime because it was not only a really good anime, but it was just a really good show. And it was,
Right.
I think, a very good introduction. It's like, hey, you like crime thrillers and intrigue. Like, here it is in a different medium that you've probably maybe not experienced before. But
Right.
this could get you into other things later down the road. Like, Erased could easily lead to you watching like something like Monster or
Definitely.
even Psychopaths or something like that.
Tokyo Ghoul.
Tokyo Ghoul.
Well, maybe.
Tokyo Ghoul.
Maybe.
I have some feelings about Tokyo Ghoul, but
And they're all
haven't
good
seen a
because
whole
that was
lot.
a well-adapted series.
theme song
Very-
is really good.
It is. Very good.
That's where I'll leave it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's
I-
funny that you bring up Erased though, because Robert and I are actually in the middle of. We're almost finished with it.
Okay,
So,
I won't say
but
anything.
no,
obviously,
but I agree with your sentiment though. Like, I think it definitely comes across as like the whole murder mystery thing, and it feels like a show that would be fairly accessible to people that aren't like big into anime or are familiar with it, right? Because I mean, it's the concept is, you know, a story that works in a lot of different or the story trope that does work in a lot of different TV shows, CSI, and all those crime shows.
Because I think there's a lot of anime today that kind of bank on the fact that anime fans are watching it versus trying to be a show on its own. It is literally like,
Right.
let's like hyper focus it on this specific trope and run with that, or something
Yeah.
of that ilk. Like, I feel like Re:Zero was very dependent on the fact that you're familiar with the isekai genre, or
100%.
there's even another one that's like literally it's just like in another world with my cell phone or something like that, and it's like, of course you know about the in the other world genre, and you have
Yeah.
some expectations of what's going to happen because of that.
Like, basically, if it's not Sword Art Online or Log Horizon, you're watching an isekai that assumes you've seen another isekai.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
it just kind of assumes that. But no, I'm glad that you brought up Erased, because that is definitely a show where I think it is a show first that happens to be an anime. And what I like about it is it does have anime tropes, a lot of anime tropes in it. Like, the villain gets red eyes, right? And it's like normally their eyes aren't red, but like when you see them in a menacing shot, you get red eyes. And I feel like that's a very anime thing to do. Or the main character has a goof he does all the time where he says things out loud, and then after he says them, in his brain he says, "I said that out loud," and it's like, aha, it's funny. And that's very Japanese comedy. It's like repetition, right? And it's like it comes in inopportune times, and that's a trope in anime too. Like, you see it used a lot. I mean, trope is maybe a bit strong because that's just kind of part of Japanese culture and comedy. But it is still very Japanese. Like, you don't see that as often in an American TV show, for example. But the way it's incorporated, it doesn't feel like it's banging you over the head. Like, this is an anime. Get it?
Yeah,
You
like
piece of shit.
I feel like visually we can see that being dropped as well. Like, in the past in anime, like from the 90s or early 2000s, you had a lot of the visual gags, like the sweat drop, or nosebleed, or like the squiggly lines for being sad, or the angry
It's like a
pulse
plus sign.
Yeah,
but
the pulse
yeah.
sign. They've like, animators have moved on to doing things that are either more obvious, or you don't really need to have that specific, like, oh, they made the sad face now.
Yeah,
Like-
I mean, my favorite anime trope from back then was the flow of consciousness. That's you as a chibi character.
Mm.
Like, yeah,
Oh
the main
my
character is
gosh,
a chibi
the
character.
chibis.
And yeah, that's what's going on in their head.
Right. But something I did want to bring up before we jump into the modern day anime hellscape. It's when I was growing up and getting into anime into the internet age, I ran into a very famous little argument called subs versus dubs.
Hallelujah.
That was everywhere.
That was everywhere. That's still, it's not, I don't think it's everywhere today. And I don't want to say that it's because one side has won over the other. I think it's more like people have conceded that it's a personal preference and have stopped attacking other people. That's my hope.
Yeah. I think a big part of it too is just the general quality of anime dubbing over the past 20 years at least has really gone up. Just at a base level, you're getting more quality. I mean, there's basically a guild for voice actors and dubbing and things like that. I mean, you have Chris Sabat's studio, I think Okratron 3000 or whatever down in Texas, that they do a shitload of work, and it's all super high quality for dubbing. So yeah, I think a lot of that mentality stems from the old school thought of like, why are you watching the dub when it's really shitty and poorly acted? When you could be watching the sub, where like, you know, even if it is poorly acted, you're not really going to know the difference because you don't speak Japanese. But yeah, so I mean, that's the argument, and but what's your guys' relationships though with subs and dubs? I wonder.
So hot take from me, if you give a shit, you're a bad person. Cause like just let people do, like, yeah, there are some shows where like the dub is kind of worse, it's more cheesy or not interesting, but at the same time, like, I can't play video games and watch anime at the same time unless it's dubs, so there's that. But also, like, I watch both. It's kind of like it's a toss up for me. I don't really care that much because at the end of the day, I'm still watching the show, and the dub is a way to consume it. You know, it's just another way to increase accessibility for people who don't want to read subtitles. I mean, I think people should want to read subtitles. I don't think it's a bad thing to do that, but if you have a problem with it, here's your solution: watch it dubbed, right? But above all, if you care and you badger other people, like, oh, you watch dubs, you should be watching subs, or else you're missing the nuance in Japanese language. It's acted better in Japan.
Okay.
You're being a gatekeeping piece of shit.
Yeah. It's okay to want to be like, oh, well, like, you're like, this has more meaning in the Japanese because when you say it like this, it actually means this, and da 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 da. But yeah, if someone wants to watch the dub, let them watch the dub.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel too. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. We're like, yeah, I don't really give a shit what other people do. My relationship with subs and dubs, it varies anime to anime. Can't watch Naruto dubbed because I always watched it subbed. Just
That's
how it happened.
I can only watch it dubbed actually because of the nostalgia factor.
So
that's
you're
fair.
Believe it.
Believe it. Okay, he dropped that pretty quickly. After the tuning exam arc, I don't think you hear believe it for a long time.
Oh, thank God. But like Dragon Ball Z is like, have to watch the Toonami dub, and it has to have the original Bruce Faulkner music. Can't watch it any other way. That's it. I'm sorry. Not gonna listen to Granny Goku. Not gonna do it.
See, I'm so agnostic to that shit where I grew up watching that Bruce Faulkner music, that techno weird shit music with Dragon Ball. And now if I watch Dragon Ball Z, I'm okay with watching it with the normal Japanese music, like with Kai, because like it's pretty good still. And then I watched all of Super fully in Japanese, so I really don't care. Like I'll watch, like, as long as I'm watching it, like I can understand the show and understand what's happening. Not that Dragon Ball is a complicated show to watch, right?
They need the balls, right?
They need Goku's balls.
Now, real quick though, as an aside, there is a certain argument though that, especially back in the day, they were much more guilty of this. Not so much nowadays, but they can in some instances drastically change the script when dumbing it over, and thusly changing a lot of the characterizations of some of the characters.
Sailor Moon.
Dragon Ball Z being a huge example, because especially if you're someone who hardcore watches the English dub, the Toonami dub of Dragon Ball Z, and then go to Dragon Ball Super, for instance, Goku feels like a pretty different character, because the way they dub him in the original Toonami dub makes him out to be like fucking Superman, whereas in the Japanese version, he's actually just this kind of an ass of a dude that literally only fights people because he wants to get stronger and basically saves people out of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's dumb. He's a big himbo.
He doesn't understand like million, like the concept of a million. He can't really wrap his head around it. He's a real dumb man. But no, I think that's important to kind of consider, and it still happens today. I think back to I think Fire Emblem Fates, which is a video game, if you don't know. There's a character who is in the English like localization is just kind of dumbed down to like their only character trait is they like pickles. Like that's it. They're just really horny about pickles.
Okay.
I don't really know what the Japanese characterization of them is, but I do know that a lot of people were like upset because it is very one-dimensional compared to what the Japanese translation was, right? So like that's a pretty bad example. But what I am willing to defend is there are a lot of people out there who do hate, like, there are jokes that are said in Japanese, and then there's some localization, like especially in dubs, where they replace it with a different joke, one that's maybe a little bit more palatable to a Western audience, right? And some people really hate that. They're like, oh, that's not preserving the originality of the script, which I understand that argument. And, you know, I do think, yeah, there's definitely merit to that. And those people are probably the kind of people who watch the sub. But the thing is, when you watch the sub for those jokes, usually the sub will do one of two things. It will either A, substitute it for another joke, or B, throw up a wall of text that you have to pause. And that is like translator's note. And it like explains the joke and why you need to know this Japanese historical figure to understand why it's funny, right? And it's like, and it's at that point where it's like, from a localization aspect, isn't it more convenient and perhaps even more palatable to make a joke about George Washington, for example, as opposed to a joke about Toyotaro? That's not even a guy.
Well,
you just made up a name.
I think that's a manga artist. Shit.
Oh my. Well, we're joking about him now.
Yeah, but I get your point though, and also too, like those are the types of hard decisions as a localizer, I guess, that you have to make, right? Mm-hmm. Like those are something that, like, you know, they have, but you have to also think about that as someone who does localization, it's your fucking job to make sure that even if you are changing the script slightly, you need to make sure that it stays within the wheelhouse of that character. Yeah. Right? Like, this is still an act that this character would perform. And honestly, at that point, it's like, is it really that big of a deal? Because it's still that you're still getting the brunt of that character. You know, mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as the joke is in that character's nature.
This isn't the days of the fan subs where they would randomly not translate certain words, and then you'd have the wall of text explaining, like, all according to keikaku, and it's like, keikaku means plan.
It's like, just say fucking plan.
Just say it.
It's like, yeah, that's like the extreme of, I need to go hardcore, like Japanese all the way, right? Like that's the extreme awful version of that. Whereas the extreme version of dubbing things so hard that it makes it dumb is Brock from Pokemon really loving jelly donuts.
I love these jelly donuts.
Yeah, like that's
because
just like,
no one's going to be able to understand what a rice ball is.
Mm-hmm.
It feels insulting at that point.
Kind of. So yeah, I think it's worth us at least broaching the subject of dub subs.
Yeah, that's
because. Yeah, because I think that's an early precursor to gatekeeping in anime, which is now hella prevalent in the modern day, where anime is now mainstream. Like, it's everywhere. Like, you kind of can't, like, even Comic-Con, right? Like, has anime there. Like, next to Superman and Batman and Spider-Man is Goku. Like, just legitimately. Like, that just is kind of how it works now. And of course, like, even modern day anime, like 2-day anime, like My Hero, right? It's everywhere. So for one, I guess I want to pause here and kind of ask the group, how do you guys feel? Like, you all grew up watching anime. It's part of your nerddom, part of the reason you might have been bullied, maybe. I don't know. How does it feel now that anime is mainstream?
These fucking normies, they're just like, they like anime now, but they were making fun of me when I wore my headbands and goggles to school, and now they want to be like, 02 is my waifu. It's like, fuck you. No. Great. More the merrier, I think, is what it should be, and it makes anime more accessible, and there's more merch to buy because everyone's into it. Like, I don't have to go to obscure places to find, like, a My Hero shirt. Like, I can just go to Hot Topic. But
I will say, Daily, though, if you do wear a headband and goggles outside of, like, a convention setting, I think people still might just, heads up, people still might make fun of you.
That's fine. I do see it more, though. Fair. I have seen other people today wearing headbands. Less so goggles. I think goggles were more of, like, a 90s anime thing. But regardless, more the merrier. I really don't understand like the weird like defensiveness. It's like I liked it first, so you can't like it. It's like it's not a finite resource liking something.
Yeah. So I think a big, I mean, I love that anime is like super accessible now, that a lot of people are getting into it. I mean, for one, it's just super easy to get into anime because it's on all the streaming services nowadays. Streaming services
It's on
are probably,
Netflix.
yeah, it's like, it's ubiquitous with everything else that you can view on TV now. It's just there. And that just wasn't a thing maybe about 10 years ago. I mean, you got really lucky if a couple of anime were on something like Netflix. I mean, shit, I think 2010 was probably around the time that Netflix was just now getting streaming going as a part of their platform. Before that, it was DVDs. But
In the mail.
In the mail.
The fuck
I remember
is
that.
mail?
Fucking mail.
We're not gonna know anymore after not too long.
Oh, politics.
Politics.
Oh,
Ooh.
Politics.
If I
I'm a
may.
talking head.
Have a spicy take. No.
Don't mind if I do. Yeah, but no, I'm super happy with how accessible it is, and I think it's one of those things where I think accessibility plays a huge part in the growing fandom of anime, because, like, you know, the less barriers, the easier it is to get into something, the more people you're going to have get into said thing, right? Because it's really hard to ask people to get into something, or that's why a lot of people got made fun of, probably because back in the day, it was kind of a hobby, right? Like, you had to go completely out of your way to like get these obscure VHS tapes that someone in a fucking back room somewhere was subbing themselves, like, with all these fucking crazy VCRs and machines and stuff, and you paid a lot of money to get these VHSs with only like 3 episodes on them. And so, but nowadays, you know, you just flick on your TV, and now you have ahegao faces all over your TV.
And all over your sweater.
And
You
your
can buy that
clothes.
merch.
Neither of those things have to happen. Just saying.
But they should.
Should they? But it's interesting that you say, I think back in the day, you're right to say that it was more of a hobby, like consuming anime, because you had to put some effort behind it. You probably had to invest in it.
Right.
Whereas today it feels like much more of a passive consumption. Like, you can be a really big anime fan and like collect figures and merch and etc. But because of the ubiquity of the internet and streaming and accessibility of like Amazon, you can just really passively enjoy anime the same way that you would enjoy just mainstream television. And I think, and I understand that if I guess I get where the old guard that can rub people the wrong way of like, well, I had to put in effort and now no one has to like just flick on the TV and there it is.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, like, they paved the way for what we have now in a lot of ways too, though. So like, you know, it should be more of like, rather than gatekeeping, it should be like a point of pride. Like, yeah, like I'm glad that, you know, people that were there back then actually spreading this shit around, and it being known in the underground and eventually becoming mainstream and getting broadcast on TV. I mean, a lot of those people spreading the word around, you know, and anime wouldn't be nearly as big here now if we didn't have those people to begin with.
Yeah.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, moment of silence for everyone that had to watch their anime in 3 parts on YouTube, and sometimes it was the right subs and sometimes it wasn't, but you made do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think gatekeeping is it happens in a lot of industries and fandoms, right? Just in general. And especially that same narrative of like, I liked it before it was cool. How dare you like it because it's cool? You know, it's a lot of it is nested in this idea of, oh, these people are only pretending to like it to be cool. And I'm like, dude, there are people who do that, sure. But if you want to pretend to be cool, liking anime is not like, even today, even with it being mainstream, that is not like the go-to, like, yo, bro, you heard about that one girl? She likes anime. She's like the coolest fucking girl ever, man. Like, no. It's not really, it's not something you pretend to like to be cool. You know, if someone genuinely likes it, even if it's Kim Kardashian, right? Even if she did a Darling in the Franxx cosplay,
Oh my god.
and then she said, "Hey, I genuinely like it," and then
I
you're
love
gonna
this
be like,
bitch. This
Yeah,
pink haired
it's like-
bitch.
it's like, dude, just let her like it. Like, it's fine. You know, you had that one dude who was who was like, "Oh yeah, if you really like anime, show your MAL." And it's like, dude, fuck off. They like it. End of story.
God, is that a thing that
Yes.
people do? They're just like, show
Prove
me your
it.
MAL,
Prove
your
it.
my
Your
anime
MAL
list.
It's your my anime list. It's your license. It's your registration to prove you're a true
God.
anime fan.
Do people on Reddit just like fucking pull you over and threaten to take you to anime jail? Like,
Yes.
Prison school.
Here, you have been fined unless you show me my anime list.
Yeah.
Let people like things, regardless of when
Yeah.
they got into something or how much they're into it. I'm all for casual consumption. I'm all for like fanatical otaku consumption. Just let people be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much with any sort of like enthusiastic fan base of anything, there's naturally going to be gatekeepers. It's just that the more you scale up that fan base, the more prevalent those gatekeepers tend to become because you
Mhm.
just have more of them. Yeah.
And Daly, I'm glad that you brought up the otaku thing too, because I feel like that's another form of gatekeeping I see a lot, where it's like, oh yeah, you may like the show because it was just like on this season or whatever, but have you read all the manga? Are you caught up on the manga? Did you watch the secret DVD OVA that you have to buy
Oh my god,
off
fucking OVAs.
Amazon.co.jp? Yeah. Did you read all of the author's notes from the original Shonen Jump run? Like, if you don't read all that, then you're not a real fan. It's like, no, dude, fuck up. Like, yeah, sure, they might not be quote unquote as much of a fan as you are because they haven't read all of the extraneous other shit, but that doesn't nullify what they like. Like, that doesn't nullify that they enjoyed what they've seen already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if it's the difference between like someone enjoying something and then or not enjoying something at all, like, wouldn't you rather someone enjoy something?
No,
You know, especially if it's something that you just so happen to like.
no,
You know,
How
God
dare they.
forbid you have someone else to talk to about it. You know,
no. I need to be the only person who likes that thing, or else
Yeah.
I'm not a real fan, and I can't have that.
yeah.
I hate the phrase like not a real fan to begin with, because like you said, are there I don't really believe that there's many people out there. It's a very minuscule percentage of people that are like, oh yeah, I totally like this thing. I totally like it. And they actually haven't watched it or something. I don't
Like
think that's
posers
real.
is what
Like
you're saying.
posers. I believe that there's people that are like, oh yeah, I've heard of that, and that maybe they haven't heard of that, or like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to watch that, and maybe they're never going to watch it. But like the
Yeah.
amount of people that there's certain gatekeepers seem to imagine that are like, oh, I love Naruto. My favorite character is Itachi, and and it's like, you just fucking like Googled that, like you Googled like the Naruto
Yeah.
plot, and you just decided to pick a random character, and it's like no, that doesn't happen.
You know where I see that a lot, and maybe this uncovers a little bit of perhaps sexism on the internet. Not that would be a thing. Not that the world is sexist. of course.
Never.
No, but I see it a lot on like cosplay photos. Like, there are a lot of, especially women, who post like photos like, hey, look at this cool cosplay I did. And like, if you scroll hard enough, you'll find comments that are like, oh, she probably doesn't even read Shaman King. She doesn't even know what Shaman King is. I mean, no one does nowadays, but like, you know, it's
okay,
just like,
I am gonna call out Shaman King cosplayers because clearly, no.
but you know,
Really?
that's such a weird thing. I mean, it's like, for one, the point of them posting the photo is to show, look, I put in all this effort. Like, you know how much styrofoam I went through to make this? Like, appreciate that, right? Like, that's one. And
Yeah,
on the
I
other
stayed up
hand,
until 5 a.m. last night fixing this up for this photo shoot.
Jeez.
yeah, like, cosplayers put in a lot of work. And I think it's like,
Yeah.
even regardless of whether they watch the show, which I'm willing to bet a majority of well-meaning cosplayers do watch, like, whatever show, or at least are passingly familiar with whatever show they cosplay, right?
Yeah.
Does it matter that they know the deep lore behind the cosplay they've done? Or does it matter that just like they did a kick-ass cosplay and you can see it and it's cool?
Yeah, it's not like, you know, first of all, 99.99999% percent of people that are liking pictures from a cosplayer probably will never speak to them their entire life. So whether or not they actually know the fucking thing they're representing, does it even really matter from even a conversational standpoint? It doesn't fucking matter. Like it doesn't in really any way matter. Even if the person was like, I saw this design, I thought it was cool, and I made a costume out of it.
That's fine.
That's
that
enough.
could be their gateway into liking the thing. But if there's a bunch of gatekeepers standing there and being like, well, actually, in episode 36, they get a haircut, and you should have noticed that because no, then it's gonna be like, you know what? I'm probably not gonna watch this. It seems like it's more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, it's kind of like the argument of that was going around the internet for a while, because like the whole people wearing like band shirts even though they don't listen to the band sort of thing, right? That was a pretty heated argument for a while, especially after designers started getting a hold of like certain licenses for certain bands like Metallica, Nirvana, Iron Maiden, etc. And they were releasing like widespread like American Eagle was carrying Metallica shirts and Forever 21 and blah blah blah. A lot of people are talking about, you know what, you wear that and you don't even listen to the band. It's like, yeah, like I understand why that might be frustrating, but does it really fucking matter? In fact, I think it's a good thing, because all it does is it spreads the word about this band, God forbid, right? You know, like this person walks by on the street and their shirt says Metallica on it, and someone's like, oh, Metallica, I'm gonna give them a listen.
And I think it even goes beyond that. Like, I'm willing to bet that if someone walks by someone else with a Metallica t-shirt and they don't know what Metallica is somehow, I'm not convinced maybe that they're going to see that logo and be like, I'm going to Google Metallica and watch, listen, or consume that whatever comes up, right? Like, I don't think that's really going to happen.
No.
But what I think that's a signifier of is that names like Metallica and Nirvana have become so mainstream that they're now ingrained in the culture, right? The cultural conscience.
Yeah.
It's like if I see someone with an Andy Warhol painting, I'm not going to assume they're a Warhol head like me. I love Andy Warhol so much.
Oh, we learned something.
But you know, it's like, I'm not going to assume that they know everything about that artist. I'm just going to assume, oh, everyone fucking knows that Campbell Soup painting. So like, yeah, you have one, because it's just part of our identity now as like culture.
This is how culture happens, and anime has just become part of the culture at large. It's no longer a niche thing, and I think more and more people are going to just become accustomed to that, and I hope that with that, all the haters are gonna go away forever into the shadow realm.
I wish.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, you know, anime, and I guess as a whole, more so like Japanese culture as a whole, has been like a kind of like a uniting factor. Like there's like this really cool cultural incestuous relationship between Japan and the US now, where it's like they're kind of like trading designs and styles and fashion trends and stuff like that, right? Like with every, you know, a bunch of people are wearing, I don't know, fucking what's a Western style that people really like in Japan? Fucking, I don't know, cardigans and fucking t-shirts and jeans.
Fashion man Colin Sparling.
Fashion
on.
man.
I don't fucking know, dude. I don't know fucking fashion. Fucking fashionistas out there write into me and tell me I'm wrong. But the point is, now we have anime and a whole bunch of other Japanese influenced things all over our shirts. Uniqlo is a huge thing here, which is awesome, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of cross-pollination from Japan and the US, and I think a big part of that has been anime and influx of Japanese media. And I think we see that now happening again with the Korean wave. And I think that we're just going to continue to open up to other cultures and their media. And I think that there's only good to be had from that. And so don't hoard it, share it.
Don't be a gatekeeper.
Don't
basically
be a gatekeeper.
Yeah. And I mean, I do want to at least extend an olive branch, right? Because like, if you are someone who genuinely believes that, you know, oh, they can't like the thing I liked because XYZ, for one, you've probably already tuned out by now and think we're a bunch of jags, which is unfortunate, but true. Two, the thing to like consider is maybe just have a little bit more of an open mind, right? Like that's how the world kind of functions, right? It's like when only one party or one group has their say and they win, that's called tyranny, just in general, right? So maybe like consider there are other ways to consume anime. There are other ways to enjoy anime. The way you enjoy anime is valid in the same way that Tammy over there enjoys anime. They're both equally valid.
Shout out to Tammy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tammy.
I want to let me put it super simply for you. If gatekeeping was a huge thing in anime and continued to be, we never would have gotten anime over here in the first place and never would have left Japan. You know what I'm saying? Like if gatekeeping would have kept fucking anime in Japan and we never would have known the amazing thing that is, anime.
That is Ahegao.
That is Ahegao. And this
For better
is
or for worse.
This has
everything
been-
in Poderation.
I hate it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think we should wrap up though. Yeah, I mean, expect more episodes about anime from us in general. I think it's something that obviously we've all grown up with and is something that we kind of keep up with. So it'll happen, down the line.
Anime will
some,
happen.
Yeah, we have some interesting ideas coming up that are depraved, probably. But
Not as much as anime for, but
yeah, but they'll be a lot of fun, I think. You can also probably check us out on Twitter. We're on there at Everything in Pod. And if you're listening on YouTube, the link should be down below in the description. We'll see you
subscribe,
next week.
ding that bell,
Oh yeah,
Oh.
and smash that subscribe button.
And
button
add
too.
us on your anime list as your favorite anime.
We are on MAL right now too.
Yes,
so-
absolutely. All right. Jenny!
Bye.